probably going to think that I'm a perfectionist in this video, that maybe I spend too much time doing the little things and not enough on the big things. I'd tell you that it's sometimes the little things in a picture that can matter more than the big things. Yes, I am actually painting fur. Every strand or two I can manage. Does my reference image show this? No, it absolutely doesn't. It's highly pixelated and doesn't show a lot of detail. The client, however, knows this horse and his fur. She knows him probably almost as well as a sibling, if not better than that. And having his fur be long and fluffier than any photo would be able to capture is very important. First off, I adore animals. I have ever since I was very young. This love of animals was narrowed eventually to the love of animals that I came into contact with most often. That included lizards, snakes, lemurs, cats, dogs, and last but not least, horses. Though I wasn't exposed to horses very young, as a young adult, I had a few friends who owned or boarded not too far from me. Oftentimes we would visit only for a few hours and just lunge or groom them, nothing too fancy. One horse I recall having a spirit of a bonfire, if that's possible, and her name was Wren. She was my best friend's quarter horse, whom we visited about a dozen times over the course of a fall and a winter. She had a lot of personality and was always trying to bite our shoulders for attention and treats. That was adorable. She was sold shortly before that friend moved to Florida, and I went horse friendless for a while. That encounter sparked more interest in horses in general. It was typical to see me watching the Olympic equestrian games or sneaking in Grand Prix live on YouTube wherever I got the chance. My work at the time was very lenient during downtimes when the phones weren't ringing off the hook, and I would spend about 45% of my time researching horses and watching training videos. So when the time came, I joined a few social groups and a nonprofit organization where I met my current horse friend. Gnome is a spastic ball of energy and love. She adores the people around her and believes that everyone and everything is worth a second, third, and even fourth chance. She is a kind-hearted and wonderful human, and I'm glad I have the pleasure of being in her life. Now that the emotional part is out of the way, the story really starts with her mom and dad. They had land enough for horses, and so they bought a few. I don't know in what order, but I do know when I met them, they had 4 wonderful individual horses. At one point, they did have 5. The 5th was the sister to the horse in the drawing, and unfortunately, I did not have the pleasure of knowing her. According to no one in her family, however, the horse was very affectionate, in your pocket, and genuinely willing to please. The horse in my drawing, his name is Buck. He missed his sister when she passed, and it became very hard for him. But he also loved his people and wasn't done with life himself. He was a kind horse, one you would throw a beginner on and let him loose in the yard. He generally knew his audience as an old Fjord quarter cross and would never overwhelm newcomers with speed. He preferred nothing higher than a mild canter when he was feeling fresh. He was trained to pull cart, but I never personally saw him harnessed, as I soon came to realize. He was in fact rescued from a harness. He and his sister had been a pair of Amish cart horses, and by the banded scar across his nose, they didn't care much to fit him to his harness properly. His hair never grew right due to that mistreatment. I didn't interact with him much at all, as I was usually on their mare Frisian, Usina, but I do know how he finally came to trot across the Rainbow Bridge. He had colicked, and it wasn't looking good. He was suffering, and Gnome's parents knew it. The vet was there with the parents and asked them to make the impossible decision, let him go or try to save him while he suffered. When the moment came, Buck seemed to know that it was his time. He reached his big long face over his owner's shoulder and pulled her to his neck in an embrace that made the eyes water. Soon after that, he was gone with a little help from the vet. After 30 years on this earth, doing what he could and loving where he was able, he finally was able to reunite with his sister over the Rainbow Bridge. I was lucky to know him, and Gnome never fails to remind me of how dear he was to her entire family, every time I tell her how much I'm working on this piece. So yes, the level of detail I am putting into this piece might seem to be overdoing it, but it's not without good reason. This piece will be hung in Gnome's house for years to come. A copy may even reach her mother's home at one point, and the children who weren't lucky enough to know him may yet enjoy a small piece of him when the family talks about Buck, the Amish cart horse who loved till his last. So that's why. That is why I'm a perfectionist on this one, and why I choose to record for you probably a tedious process to some, but an emotional one for me.